Today, we're going to explore the story of a brutal underworld war that has been raging on the streets of Amsterdam for over a decade. I'm talking about the infamous Mocro Maffia War, and at the center of this bloody mafia war is a man named Benaouf Adaoui. Benaouf Adaoui was born in 1987 in Leeuwarden, but his exact date of birth remains unknown. He was from a big Moroccan family in Meknes, but he grew up in Eindhoven, Netherlands. There is not much known about his youth, but when he was in his early 20s, he moved to Amsterdam and started working as a waiter at the popular nightclub Escape in the De Peep area. When living in Amsterdam, Benaouf joined the criminal world through his brother-in-law, Hussein Ait Soussan, then part of the group of Gwenette Martha, and concentrated mainly on the profitable cocaine business. He was young, enthusiastic, and hungry for money, the ideal formula for becoming a drug kingpin. By the end of 2011, Benaouf chose to invest money in 200 kilograms of cocaine arriving from Colombia through the port of Antwerp. Among the investors were several groups, including the group of Samir Bouyakrishan. Benaouf had initially enlisted a group of collectors to retrieve the goods from the port, but this plan fell through for unknown reasons, prompting him to quickly find another team. He asked Hussein if he knew of a group willing to take on the task, and eventually, the Turtles were enlisted. The Turtles, a team of collectors from Antwerp, specialized in retrieving cocaine from containers passing through the Antwerp ports and had always worked with Gwenette Martha. However, when the container arrived at the port, Benaouf was informed that the cocaine was missing. The Turtles claimed it had been intercepted, but Benaouf and the other contractors did not believe this explanation. They sent a punitive expedition to Antwerp, kidnapping one of the Turtles and demanding ransom for his release. They also sent a photo of the abducted turtle next to a meat grinder to his family. When Gwenette Martha heard that Benaouf was targeting the Turtles, it marked the beginning of a long-lasting and bloody conflict. Meanwhile, Hussein has had a fallout with Martha and joined forces with his brother-in-law Benaouf. So ultimately, it was Team Benaouf and Hussein against Team Gwenette Martha and his right-hand Najib Bouhbouh. This conflict would later be known as the Mocro Mafia War. In 2012, Gwenette became Benaouf's main enemy because he suspected that Gwenette had set him up together with the Turtles. Meanwhile, several other Moroccan members also left the Martha organization to support Benaouf and the other groups who had invested in the 200 kilograms of cocaine. The Gwenette group tried to make peace and set up a meeting to talk about and solve the problems. However, Benaouf had entirely different ideas, ones that would lead to very severe outcomes. The meeting between the two groups was scheduled for October 18, 2012, at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Antwerp. Najib Bouhbouh, Gwenette Martha's trusted associate, was sent by Gwenette to resolve and talk about the issue. However, nobody from Benaouf's side attended the meeting. It was a trap. Two men waited for Bouhbouh to exit his car and walk towards the hotel. They stepped out of their vehicle and fired 16 shots at Bouhbouh, who had no opportunity to flee. The attackers then fled in their white Volkswagen Golf, marking the official start of the Mocro Mafia War. It was later discovered that this incident was carefully planned by none other than Benaouf. He was the one who manipulated Chris Bouhman, a friend of Bouhbouh, to make sure that Bouhbouh would believe the situation and go to the hotel. Chris Bouhman, however, turned out to be nothing but a betrayer. Benaouf also hired the attackers and stayed in touch with them on the day of the assault. Interestingly, Chris Bouhman took his own life in prison in August 2013. It's believed that he couldn't handle the fear he felt from both sides anymore, as he was now seen as a traitor. Gwenette Martha was fuming about what happened. He wanted to make up, and Benaouf did such a horrible thing. It was only a matter of time before he came for his revenge. It was on the evening of October 31st, 2012, just 13 days after what happened to Bouhbouh, that Gwenette was ready to take action. Gwenette and his friends Dennis L., Khalid J., and Inchomar B. gathered at Dam Square in Amsterdam's city center. Two of them had loaded guns. Gwenette wore a bulletproof vest, and importantly, they had a piece of paper with Benaouf's license plate written on it. They were all keeping an eye out for his car, which matched Benaouf's vehicle registration plate. What the three men didn't realize was that a police officer on patrol had spotted one of them carrying a gun. As carrying firearms is illegal in the Netherlands, the police officer requested assistance to conduct a routine search. Benaouf must have had luck on his side that day, because shortly after, the group was surrounded by police, and everyone was arrested on suspicion of planning an attack. It would later be revealed that Benaouf had actually been driving a car with a license plate that exactly matched the one on the note, and he was in the area at that time. If the policeman hadn't stepped in, it was highly probable that Benaouf wouldn't be alive that day. Gwenette was extremely angry that the attempt didn't succeed, but he still had only one goal: to eliminate Benaouf at all costs. After spending a few weeks in prison, Gwenette had devised a new plan. Everyone was prepared, and the plan was set in motion. On December 29, 2012, around 10:30 p.m. that night, Benaouf was sitting in his Range Rover with Saeed El Yazidi, Youssef Lakorf, and Rita Benegem in the Staatsliedenbuurt, Amsterdam. They were about to meet someone. What happened next was astonishing, and it would be the incident that solidified the new generation of young Moroccan criminals in the Netherlands. While the four men were in the Range Rover, a gray Audi RS4 rushed towards them. Suddenly, multiple men started shooting at the Range Rover. The Range Rover was struck over 50 times. Saeed El Yazidi, 21, and Youssef Lakorf, 28, attempted to escape but were fatally wounded. Benaouf and Rita were able to get away. The intended target was Benaouf, but he managed to leap into the cold water between two houseboats. The people responsible for the operation were Adel A, Anouar B, and Hamza B. They pursued Benaouf, but failed to locate him. The situation was chaotic, and everything happened rapidly. Moments later, a woman who had observed Benaouf swimming near her houseboat came to his aid. Believing he had fallen into the water accidentally, she welcomed him into her home. She joked that Benaouf apologized for wetting her floor. She inquired if he was injured and offered him a towel. Benaouf politely declined, mentioning he needed to locate his friends, and then vanished. Meanwhile, the significant gunfire quickly alarmed locals. Some mistook it for fireworks because it was close to New Year's Eve, but others recognized a much more perilous situation and alerted the police. Two police motorbikes arrived promptly and pursued the car carrying Adel A, Anouar B, and Hamza B. Two of the men began shooting, compelling the two police officers on motorcycles to halt their chase out of fear for their lives. It was later disclosed that they had to seek cover behind their motorcycles to stay alive. This incident stunned the entire nation and was unprecedented. The picture of the Range Rover, riddled with bullet holes and surrounded by flashing lights, became an iconic image and the epitome of the brutality of the Mocro Maffia War. Adil A and Anouar B are currently serving life sentences in the Netherlands, while Hamza B is serving a 20-year sentence in Morocco. Benaouf once again survived an attack, but he lost two members of his group. He knew his life was in danger, so he stayed hidden for a while. Things were quiet for a few months until March 16, 2013. During the attack on Benaouf in the Staatsliedenbuurt, he was accompanied by three individuals in the car: Saeed, Youssef, and Rita. Tragically, Saeed and Youssef did not survive the assault. However, Rita managed to escape unscathed without being pursued by the perpetrators. This raised the suspicion that he was possibly involved in orchestrating the attack, perhaps to lure Benaouf to the location for nefarious purposes. These suspicions ultimately led to Rita's demise on March 16, 2013. Rita was only 21 years old. It has never been confirmed whether he had anything to do with the failed attack on Benaouf that infamous evening in the Staatsliedenbuurt. Benaouf was later arrested in June 2013 on charges of weapons possession and money laundering. Meanwhile, investigators were also busy behind the scenes, finalizing the case to officially pin him down as the coordinator for the murder of Najib Bouhbouh. Ultimately, they succeeded, and Benaouf was sentenced to 12 years in prison for his involvement in the incident. During the trial, Benaouf provided fascinating insights into his extraordinary life, marked by paranoia and caution, revealing his extensive security measures. He absolutely trusted no one. Benaouf always had 5 to 6 phones, which he changed every month, including the SIM card. He regularly changed cars and houses to make it difficult for others to track him. Benaouf also mentioned how he always spent buckets of money on the latest fashion and expensive watches. The prosecutors were impressed by what he told them, but what was about to happen next was even more astonishing. If you thought Benaouf would quietly serve his 12-year sentence, you were mistaken. Imprisoned in Leeuwarden, he planned a spectacular escape in October 2017. It all started with Benaouf having a BlackBerry PGP phone in his cell. With this phone, he began planning his great escape. Benaouf sent a detailed map of the entire prison and other relevant features to his team outside. One of those important features was the 23 by 13 meter outdoor area where prisoners could get fresh air. This area would be the focal point. But how do you get there if you're not a prisoner? There's only one option: with a helicopter. The idea was to have the helicopter hover above the outdoor area with a rope attached to a band. Benaouf would hold on to the band, and the helicopter would fly away to a nearby field where more accomplices were waiting. Everything for this specific escape scenario was meticulously prepared. A pilot from Colombia had already been hired and flown in to get the job done for 100,000 euros. Now they just needed the helicopter. One of Benaouf's accomplices, Hussein, went to Kempin Airport, an airport near the prison. He inquired about renting a helicopter because he wanted to surprise his girlfriend with a tour, or so the story went. For some reason, the staff became suspicious and called the police after Hussein had left. After some police investigation and phone taps, the police indeed confirmed that something was about to happen with Benaouf. The police acted quickly and began planning their counteroffensive. October 11th, 2017 was the day everything happened. It was a sunny but cold day. Hussein went to the airport for his supposed flight. He even had a bouquet of flowers with him to make it look real. He told the pilot that the plan was to fly to a nearby location in Weert, land, and pick up his girlfriend. But that was not the plan at all. Hussein didn't know that the entire airport was surrounded by undercover agents. The airport staff played their role, and as soon as Hussein approached the helicopter, he was quickly arrested by 5 police officers. Then the helicopter, without Hussein but with police officers, continued to the nearby pickup location in Weert. At the location in Weert, instead of Hussein's girlfriend, awaited the Colombian pilot Alvaro and 3 other men from Amsterdam in a stolen BMW. Their plan was to first hijack the pilot and then have Alvaro, the Colombian pilot, fly the helicopter. While the helicopter with the police officers was on its way to land, a team of police officers arrived to try to stop the men in the stolen BMW. Sofian LH, the driver, then stepped on the gas and drove away. After a dangerous chase, Sofian crashed. All 4 men jumped out of the car. The police managed to arrest Sofian, and the other 3 fled into the woods, but were later also arrested. But this wasn't the only team involved in Benaouf's escape. Meanwhile, another group was waiting in a fast Audi at the prison in Leeuwarden. But as part of their counteroffensive, the police already had an observation team on site watching them closely. When it became clear that the guys at the airport had been arrested, the police decided to take action and arrest the group waiting at the prison. When the officers decided to approach the car, the driver, named Eros, noticed them and took off as well. Eros drove like a maniac, while the others in the car hastily threw away their automatic weapons and ammunition. They crashed relatively quickly when Eros hit a car waiting at a red light. They got out of the car and started running, which ultimately led to the tragic event of Eros being killed by a police officer. The rest of the group was arrested after a short chase. Upon inspecting the getaway cars, the police found fireworks, likely to signal, spike strips, matches, gasoline, and the band with the rope for the escape. Also, the automatic weapons and ammunition that were thrown away during the chase were later found during further investigation. Conclusion: mission failed. Meanwhile, all prisoners in the prison were ordered to return to their cells. Of course, this also applied to Benaouf, who was under heavy guard. Multiple well-trained officers guarded his cell. The police later noticed that he was wearing multiple layers of clothing, had multiple phones in his cell, and found papers with drawings and notes of the prison. Thanks to extraordinary police work, one of the largest and most well-planned prison escapes in the Netherlands was prevented. All those involved were between 19 and 27 years old. They received prison sentences for their involvement. Ultimately, we can also conclude that planning the escape wasn't such a smart decision by Benaouf. He was supposed to be conditionally released in August 2020, but because of his involvement in this escape, he was denied early release and had to serve his full sentence of 12 years. So, this failed escape cost him 4 years in prison instead of saving him 3 years. It later turned out to be an even bigger mistake. He was transferred to a high-security prison for the remaining years of his sentence. Upon further inspection of the phones in his cell, it became clear that Benaouf was still involved in planning attacks even in prison, discussing the associated prices and recruiting shooters. They had a list of names called El Listo, and all the men on this list had to go. The police already managed to prevent several attacks, and many other attacks failed or were cancelled by Benaouf. This was enough evidence for prosecutors to add another 12 years to his sentence, which he is still serving. If he hadn't planned the escape, he would have been free and might have avoided this additional charge and sentence. What are your thoughts on this story? Share your opinions in the comments section, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for watching.